Welcome once again back to the lab. It is your old Professor Pilkin. We have to talk about builds for this upcoming Mewtwo raid. Now, we talked earlier this morning about what different moves I suspect that Mewtwo could bring to the table, and really we had a ton of type coverage here, and you want to take that into account when you're building this Mew. Remember, Dark, Bug, and Ghost are the only three that are really going to be super effective against Mew. Now, in these builds, there's a few things you want to take into account. But basically, for each build, we're going to build Mew. And the reason that we're going to build Mew, and only Mew, is because if you didn't already know, if you didn't hear me the first 47 times I said it, basically since the data miners have first surmised this coming, that was about 2, maybe 3 months ago, we have known that the Mew that you use in this raid will also receive the mightiest mark. I'll say that one more time, because a lot of people I talk to have just sloughed this knowledge off and completely forgotten I mentioned it every single time we do one of these videos. Mew, the Mew you raid with, that you take down Mewtwo with, will also get the mightiest mark. So you've got to be smart and you've got to build your Mews right. Okay? So initially I wanted to come in here and build a Dark Mew, and that was successful. I think we have a really good chance of doing that. The problem I've got with that is that Aura Sphere's chilling out there. And Aura Sphere, I think, has a really high probability of showing up in Mew's builds. Now, if it doesn't, you could build a Dark Terra Mew and you'd be fine. But once you terastallize, do remember that then you become susceptible to those moves. So an Aura Sphere will absolutely take you down to the ground, really. It's just going to beat you down if you try to do that. So I would avoid personally doing a Dark Terra. On the other hand, I think Ghost has a really solid chance. Now, with Ghost, we do have a couple of moves out there, both Ghost and Dark moves, looking at Shadow Ball and Dark Pulse specifically, that have a chance to harm you. But if those moves are not in Mewtwo's moveset, Ghost is free and clear to use. So do bear that in mind. If we are missing those moves, you can build a Ghost Terra Mew. And that's the first Mew that I'm going to talk about here. Now, we're going to be using the Adamant Mint. The Adamant Mint is basically going to up your physical attack at the cost of your special attack. We're not really too worried about special attack. We really are mostly worried about the physical attacking, abilities of Mew in this situation. So, Adamant Mint, Ghost Terra. Ability will be synchronized. Item will be Shell Bell. Shell Bell is a great way to get some healing off as you're attacking. It's just basically going to be that one thing that keeps you alive. Now, moves. Swords Dance. Increase your physical attack. Get 3 of those bad boys off. You're maxed out. You're going to be good to go. Amnesia. You really only need 1 of these, I think. I'm guessing. But Amnesia will increase your special defense. Remember, we are going to focus on increasing our special defense, but because I do feel like Mewtwo is also going to have Amnesia, I feel pretty comfortable in saying you're going to want to focus on physical attacks. We'll get to that, though, because move 3, there's a reason I'm going with Struggle Bug on move 3. Now, there are other moves you can use, but that has to fill 3 basic criteria. Number 1, it has to be an attack first and foremost. Whatever you use in move 3 has to be an attack. Number 2, you want it to lower special attack. So Struggle Bug meets all those criteria. Struggle Bug's real easy. Number 3, you want it to either be Dark, Bug, or Ghost. Guess what? It's Bug move. Meets all 3 of those criteria. If you can find one of those attacks that does that, you are absolutely good to go. Now, Struggle Bug it's a power 50. It's not the most powerful thing out there, and it's not going to get stabbed or anything of that nature. The main thing is you need to get at least 3 of these off to terastallize anyway. So you're going to save all of your Ghost moves by doing 3 Struggle Bugs, Swords Dance 3 times, and Amnesia once. Probably do, if I'm honest here, Amnesia, then Struggle Bug, then Swords Dance. Remember, Swords Dance is not going to affect Struggle Bug, so it doesn't matter. So like Amnesia, 3 Struggle Bugs, then you Swords Dance, then you start doing move 4. Hopefully that's making sense. Hopefully that's making the most sense possible. But you have to get off. You have to get off this move 3 times. Doing that 3 times will lower the special attack of your opponent. And then, after your opponent's special attack is lowered, then you can terastallize and start producing damage. I think that makes a ton of sense. I hope that's making sense to y'all out there. Now, for the final move, I went with Shadow Claw because it was a ghost physical move that produces a ton of damage. Shadow Claw will basically be your DPS, so you want to put as much PP up into Shadow Claw as possible. You are essentially just going to, after all the setup, spam Shadow Claw. Now, there's a possibility that Mew will probably, high likelihood I will say, that Mew will probably nullify your stats at that point, just Swords Dance and Amnesia, then recommence your Shadow Claw. You're not using Metronome, you're not using anything that requires you to basically replicate that move over and over again. So Shadow Claw is going to give you the opportunity to essentially wipe your opponent out. By buffing your offense, you're going to be producing a ton of damage, and you need an offensive buff. You got to have an offensive buff, or you're not going to be producing enough damage. I think that is a safe and comfortable build. Now, build number 2 gets a bit into an interesting area here. Okay, so build number 2, and there's like twofold for this build. Build number 2 is neither Dark, Bug, nor Ghost. It's the only typing here that I didn't see any coverage for, and that is Fairy. Now, build number 2, and I'm going to say we're going to do build number 2 part B as well. Build number 2 part A is a lot of like what you see here. Adamant Mid, Fairy, Terra, ability will be synchronized, item will be Shell Bell, you're going to open up Swords Dance, Amnesia. This time you're going to use Misty Terrain. Misty Terrain is going to allow you to produce a lot of damage. Or it's just basically going to let Play Rough, which is our 4th move, do as much damage as possible. And you just PP up on Play Rough, and you go to town. Now, you could still use... You could get rid of Misty Terrain and use the Struggle Bug or something like that here. I don't think it's as necessary, though, if I'm honest. I just personally don't think it's as necessary with this one. Which sounds weird, but you can just do another Amnesia and get it out of the way. Play Rough has enough PP. I think, if I recollect, I think Play Rough has 20 PP. Maybe I'm wrong in that. Maybe 15. But I think Play Rough has more PP than these other moves that we've been using. So you can use Play Rough quite often. You get 3 of those bad boys off with a Misty Terrain, reinitiate Misty Terrain, do more Play Rough, so on and so forth, and you'll be able to produce a good amount of damage. Misty Terrain essentially is just going to add another 50% to the amount of damage you're outputting. So in other words, we don't have to worry as much about the incoming damage because the Shell Bell is going to be healing us that much. It's essentially what we're going for here. Now for the part B to this build, essentially what I did is I threw on Spirit Break. Now Spirit Break doesn't do as much damage, whereas Play Rough has the power 90 but only a 95% accuracy. I don't think we're going to miss. If we do, it is what it is. But I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. Spirit Break, on the other hand, is 100% accuracy, but only 70% power. Maybe 75% power. I'm trying to remember. I think it's 70% power, though. But something in my mind is screaming 75. Doesn't matter. It's a lower power attack. But unlike our other move, but a lot like Struggle Bug, it's a physical move. It is a fairy move, but it's not going to have stab, but it will lower special attacks. So in essence, if you use Spirit Break as your DPS, put PP up in that, use your Misty Terrain, keep your Misty Terrain in place, max out your Swords Dance, 1 Amnesia. Maybe you don't even need Amnesia at that point, to be honest. Just drop an Amnesia at the beginning and then forget it's a thing. Use Spirit Break instead of Play Rough. You can lower that attack and still produce the amount of damage. Thing is, you're not going to finish it as quickly, but you're also running a little safer run in the long run. So really, you could do either one. Just Spirit Break kind of mixes the best of those prior 2 builds into one build. But essentially, they're very, very similar builds at the end of the day. Now, the weird one. And this is the one I really kind of feel like I like the most. It's something very similar to what we've done before. Now, you'll see there's some moderate change here. We're obviously Adamant Mint. We're doing the Bug Terror to kind of cover this up. Synchronized ability, but we change up our item to Metronome. That's important. Then we're going to do Swords Dance, Amnesia. We're going to do Struggle Bug. But then we're going to spam Leech Life. Now, Struggle Bug, remember, is going to basically lower their attack stat. And while that's not super necessary, we can use Leech Life with Metronome, after 6 turns, essentially you're just going to spam this bad boy. After 6 turns, this move is going to be doing twice as much damage as it would otherwise. And with a maxed out Swords Dance, that is going to be a big, heavy hitting move. The downside is with if Mewtwo does nullify all your stat changes, you'll need to go do Swords Dance and Amnesia again, or you'll get wiped right the heck out. But with the Bug Terra, with Leech Life, even if you do a Struggle Bug or two, and Max Swords Dance, Leech Life is going to be a heavy-hitting move. It's got a lot of PP. Put all your PP up in it. It is physical, so we're taking advantage of everything else out here. I think this, to me, is one of the more fun builds. The downside to this build, the big downside of this build, is if our opponent does have a fire move that really disallows us from using this. But unlike the Ghost move, there's only, well, 2 moves, but 1 typing that will prevent us from using Bug. So if there's a fire move, we can't use Bug. But if there's a Ghost or a Dark move, we can't use Ghost. All else fails, we should be able to go with Fairy. Now, there are some moves that cover Fairy, but number 1, they won't have Stab. Number 2, which neither one of these will either, except for Psychic, and then Psychic is resisted at the beginning. Number 2, that move, the only move they have is much, much, much lower in power than the rest of these moves. So I really feel like these 3 builds, one of these 3 builds will work or can be slightly modified to work for you when Mewtwo drops. But that's pretty much it, guys. Those are really the 3.5 builds that I think are going to be really good for this upcoming raid. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, comment, and share, and I'll be back with more Pokemon Scarlet and Violet coming up really soon.